Welcome everyone. I'm Heike Ritter and I will be your host for this webinar. Thanks for joining and thanks for being part of our community. A few reminders before we start. This webinar will be about an hour, will be recorded and shared publicly afterwards on our community at aka.ms/security-webinars. During the webinar, please feel free to ask questions at any time by typing them in the live event Q&A window by clicking on Ask a Question. Questions you post might be made publicly visible. If you prefer, you can post your question anonymously by checking the box right below where you enter it. And of course, we are doing our best to respond to all of them in real time or bring them up during our Q&A section at the very end. We love to hear your feedback on how we can improve these webinars, so please do so at aka.ms/security-webinar-feedback after the webinar is closed. This is important so we can deliver the content you need. If you haven't already, please join our security community at aka.ms/security-community and our Microsoft 365 Defender community at aka.ms/m365dtc. That's always the best way to ensure you don't miss any future webinars or major product announcements. So today I'm super pleased to have one of our partners present this webinar, eSentire, a leader in managed detection and response, short for MDR, and delivering a complete cybersecurity with multi-signal detection and response and threat hunting. And Curtis will introduce themselves a little bit more, so handing over to you, Curtis.
Thank you very much, Heike. All right, so thanks everyone for joining the webinar today. We will be covering, how eSentire helped solve some security problems for itself. And being able to better structurally and be able to investigate across the board all security incidents within an organization, and also how we help streamline that for a new customer offering that we came to market with. So I'm Curtis Armour. I'm a Director of Product Management here at eSentire. I focus on endpoint security as well as Microsoft security. So anything that we come out with related to offerings for managed services around managed detection and response, all come from myself and my team that architect and strategize around how to deliver seamless solutions with Microsoft security products. And I also have on with me Jason Westhaver, who is a technical lead of enterprise security. Jason, would you like to say hello?
Hi, I'm Jason. As Curtis said, I'm our technical lead for enterprise security, and I work extensively with designing and architecting our internal security solutions and posture.
Awesome. So we'll just give you a high-level kind of view of who eSentire is and what we do. So we've been around for a long time. We are one of the first companies to implement, managed detection and response before it was, actively defined in the industry. So we worked with companies like Gartner, Forrester on helping with that definition. We've been around since 2001. We started off as a professional services organization doing pen testing, vulnerability assessments, audits of, large financial institutions, and a lot based in the New York area. But obviously the company has expanded quite a bit into services and being able to deliver that kind of globally. So as of right now, we have over 1,000 customers. We deliver managed detection and response services in over 70 countries, and we have 2 global SOCs. We have a global SOC in Waterloo, Canada, as well as Cork, Ireland. And obviously the Cork, Ireland SOC is for being able to deliver services to our EMEA customers, being compliant with GDPR. We also, as I said, started off in the financial industry. We have pivoted into delivering managed detection and response services to very large healthcare, legal, and manufacturing companies. And with our implementation of services, we're able to scale that out and be able to deliver managed detection and response to all customers, and obviously scale up to being able to do, consume 20 million signals, be able to normalize, enrich them, and then help with analyst-driven investigations and response actions. And we, our goal is to be able to resolve incidents within 10 minutes across all services and all customers. The mean time to containment is 15 minutes. I'm going to hand it off to Jason to talk about, what problems we help solve for with Microsoft internally and what power and visibility that gave us, and then kind of pivot into how we took that and helped deliver that for customers in the field.
Right. So we're going to start off with a quote from our CISO. Cannot operate security services and build secure products if we are not being secure ourselves and thinking about security in everything that we do. Now, what does that actually mean? Quite simply, it means if you're a security firm, you're dead if your security isn't up to the standard it needs to be. When you're running a security-focused business, you're one bad breach away from being, Chapter 11. So we have to take a strong approach to internal security because much like when you're flying on a plane, you've got to help yourself before you can help others, or else everyone is just going to fail. So really, that's what the CISO of an MDR company has to worry about. Our reputation, our trust from our clients is everything to us. And if we can't demonstrate to our clients that we're a secure business through both a combination of our history, certifications in modern security compliance standards, stuff like ISO 27001, SOC 2, and of course through due diligence questionnaires that any business should be asking of anyone we're partnering with. If we can't create a combined positive response from all that, we're not going to close deals. And if we don't really keep the house secure, it's not just going to be about closing deals, it's going to be about losing business. So security is everything to us. What Microsoft did was made getting ourselves to that secure compliant approach a lot easier. Many years ago, we were like a lot of businesses. We were operating with an on-prem Exchange server. We had a Trend Micro spam filter in front of that. We were using basic AD for on-prem auth. We were using LDAP-S for some of our Linux servers for auth. Really basic, old school stuff that was common at the time, but wasn't really where we needed to be as a security business. With Microsoft, we were able to take advantage of the M365 offerings to move our workloads into a secure cloud space using SharePoint Online, OneDrive Online for secure data storage and multi-user editing, using Exchange Online to bring our email into a cloud environment where it's managed and monitored by some of the best security people in the world. It also allowed us to then move our security platform on top of that cloud platform. So we were able to get rid of the Trend Micro firewalls. We were able to get rid of our other security products and just to go with this one tightly congested, tightly connected platform. And that allowed us to significantly reduce our security spend while also dramatically improving our positioning. Now we weren't wasting time trying to admin 3 different services that didn't talk to each other just to find out if we had a phishing email come through. Now we have Defender 365 doing its initial ingestion of the email, checking for phishing. We have Outlook, users being able to directly report through a button in Outlook that goes back into Defender. So that message gets triggered as an event. An automatic investigation gets kicked off on the Microsoft side to look for malicious content. And we go from pulling information out of 3 systems and doing manual investigations to really just, there's 3 or 4 or 5 different ways that an event can be triggered. And when we go to look into the event, most of that investigation work has been done for us, and now it's just making an assessment on the result. This dramatically cut our phishing investigation times. And really, it's the same thing for XDR with Defender for Endpoint. We moved from having a separate program doing endpoint protection and one doing email protection to one platform where We can track a malicious file, comes in through an email, gets downloaded from email to a local machine, gets handed over to another machine through SharePoint or through Teams, and being able to say, this is the malicious file, we immediately know where it is on all endpoints, and we, with a single button, can click and purge from those multiple locations in one. So everything got easier. The amount of overhead required to maintain the systems got easier, and our spend went down because now we're paying for one license for one huge platform that's giving us everything instead of 5 or 6 different things that are all 10 or 15 bucks a month. Also, moving to this platform allowed us to integrate with our own security platforms because Microsoft's products are built to allow secure API-driven access. This allowed us to ingest threat data from our platform, ingest data from the various Microsoft sources, and just get a more rich view of what was going on in the environment. We then took what we built internally for ourselves to keep our house secure and turned this around into a product offering that we are now pushing forward because we've seen the value to ourselves internally, and now we want to share that value with our client base and with our partner, Microsoft.
Awesome. Thanks so much, Jason, for your perspective on how this helps solve for internal problems that, we have to deal with in as fast as possible, being a security company ourselves. So moving into more about, what eSentire delivers and how we deliver it. So there's a great quote that summarizes what MDR is from Gardner, and it's all around reducing the time to detect a threat that is meaningless without corresponding reduction in response time. So we want to make sure that we have the ability to pull in all the events, do investigations, and really limit the business impact to an organization, which includes ourselves, but specifically for our customers as well. So talking about how eSentire does this at scale for over 1,000 customers, we've built our own proprietary platform for being able to consume, normalize, orchestrate, and respond to all these different threats that we deal with on a daily basis. We call this Atlas, and this is the main platform for our consumption of signals for investigation and SOC response. So Atlas has the ability to consume anything. We consume network, endpoint, log, cloud, vulnerability data sets. We pump that in, we correlate that across different signal types, and then we give our analysts the ability to do rich investigations and rich response actions. Within the Microsoft suite, right now we're fully operationalizing, the implementation, the configuration, and response for Microsoft Defender for Endpoint and Microsoft Defender for O365. We will be launching a dedicated Azure Sentinel service around the September timeframe. And with that will come, the Security Center, the M365 identity, and MCAS components as well for additional tools for how we can respond to threats. eSentire is all around, being able to create novel threat detection on top of platforms and also integrating, threat intelligence and advanced threat analytics. So we have a dedicated team, the threat response unit, that's job is to create detections that, products themselves may miss, or through our testing have identified there's a better way of detecting those specific threats. We also have, various patents for machine level detections. So we run something we like to call Blue Steel, which does character frequency analysis and feature extraction on all PowerShell execution within an environment, which we have caught, advanced persistent threats before with, and is one of our best performing ML pipelines within the company. So everything that comes in the Atlas platform is normalized and enriched to make sure that it has the appropriate data so that when an analyst is looking at it, they do not have to pivot to too many of the tools. From there, there's a triage process. Then there is the hands-on and eyes-on keyboard kind of investigation and response. And then all of that data feeds into what we call the Insight portal, which is our transparent visibility to our customers on our investigations, our outcomes, and what we've ultimately delivered as part of the investigation into the potential incident. And obviously, we keep customers up to date via, email communications as well as phone calls, depending on how serious the situation is. But all that feeds into our single pane of glass, which is our insight portal, which gives transparency into everything that we do. So as we kind of alluded to earlier, MDR is all about shrinking threat actor dwell time. The best way to do that is having multiple enforcement points and multiple detection points within an organization to really round out what we're able to see and what we're able to do. So if you think of, a traditional network, generally you want to have enforcement control points across the network, endpoint, email, and identity, because those are all the main ways that you can, stop a potential compromise from happening. So on the network side, eSentire has its own proprietary custom IDS IPS that we install on customer networks. And that helps us, block malicious IPs and network connections, detect C2 traffic, anything that, is maybe not able to be monitored by an endpoint agent or has the ability to be better detected through network traffic analysis. So that's one of the core technologies that eSentire has had for a long time. And it is one that we, layer on with endpoint as well. And in the context of Microsoft, obviously Microsoft Defender for Endpoint is the combination of, next-gen AV, firewall management, USB control, EDR, a ton of power and functionality. And that gives us, full control to be able to do, tactical network isolations. It gives us the ability to kill a running process that may be malicious, do a deep dive into, the network communications from that endpoint on the endpoint itself. Also gives us the ability to potentially reboot a machine if we identify memory persistent malware. Really gives us the ability to do anything we need to resolve a threat on a specific endpoint. Moving over to email, obviously phishing emails and business email compromise is a huge thing across the industry. So from our perspective, being able to control the authentication of mail coming into an organization, being able to control spam policies, malware policies, and phishing policies gives us a lot of leverage to help protect our customers so that they don't have to deal with an incident or have us respond to an incident. But also the tools that it gives us access to be able to delete emails that we've identified as threats, be able to quote unquote zap anything within the organization that has been escalated and deemed to be a threat that got through the spam filter, gives us a ton of control. And kind of rounding all that out is if, for example, there's a situation where a host becomes compromised, we respond, we limit the susceptibility of that attack, but there is the potential exposure of, stolen credentials or someone taking something that they had within that short time that they were on that machine and then trying to leverage it for more nefarious purposes. So, we have a direct integration with Azure ADP2, where we have the ability to suspend user access within an organization to limit the susceptibility of an insider threat or compromised credentials being used against the organization. So talking to what Jason initially said about Microsoft creating an environment for securely accessing customer data and being able to allow our SOC to be able to do deep dive investigations. We utilize delegated access within Microsoft for being able to access customer environments. So delegated access via the Azure External Identities and Entitlement Management component, which is a part of the Azure ADP2 subscription, allows us to assign access packages to our analysts that have extremely restrictive permissions. So really, it gives the customer the full control on being able to approve who has access into their environment. And it also gives us, limited access to be able to do what we need to do without over permissive privileges within the environment. And so obviously, as we were saying before, eSentire being a security company that manages all these customers out in the wild is extremely important that we never become compromised. And being able to make sure that, our policies and procedures for single sign-on and MFA with internally are applied to accessing other customer environments. To give you an idea of the flow of how we access customer environments, so when we get those access packages set up, we essentially are, we have our own conditional access policies internally. So anyone accessing our own environment have to adhere to the compliance standards that the CISO organization has put forward. And then whenever we're connecting into a customer's environment, their same conditional access policies are applied to us as well. So there's 2 levels of authentication there, and it allows us to be scrutinized every time we're accessing resources needed to conduct an investigation in the customer's environment. Now, in the case of the direct integration with Atlas, we actually utilize enterprise applications and the authentication via those APIs to be able to take actions at scale and be able to consume events at scale. But the actual access into the customer's environment obviously needs to be very strict and stringent. So we utilize the delegated access and access packages so that we only have guest access into our customers' environments to limit any risk to both organizations. So this quote summarizes why our customers partner with us for security. We service customers who want to be proactive and tackle the challenges of threat detection and response, and don't want to just know about the issues. Typically, most of our customers don't have the ability or the cost to be able to run a 24/7 SOC and be able to do investigations at any time, at any day. So that's where we come in. Obviously, we partner with our customers, and we want to make sure that all events that are coming out of these platforms and anything that we identify through threat hunting are actioned immediately, and the business risk is minimal. So this slide kind of speaks to the main reason why we're hearing our customers and partners bring up Microsoft security more and more. Obviously, Microsoft has been dominating the key categories that they're investing in. In the main security side, Gartner and Forrester has the majority of their products as leaders and visionaries. So they are putting out some seriously good products. So customers are obviously asking about that. But one of the main things too is that there are so many different vendors out there solving, very similar problems across the board. There is a lot of security fatigue in the industry, and having, the various security engineers or consultants in your organization, trained up on all these individual technologies that are not integrated, they're not communicating together, really leaves a lot on the table. Just in our own example and how, consolidating into the bundles for Microsoft helps solve for some of our, integration and speed to detection and response. It's very applicable to the various different sections of cybersecurity. One of the other things too is that Microsoft helps deliver the consolidation across, a large portion of these, and with the bundling and the cost effectiveness of going all in on that Microsoft stack, it really helps deliver, unified security, and then allows you to standardize on a technology that is going to be integrated across the board. So based on some of our own examples, obviously eSentire is a case study in some of our customers. We've found that it is, beneficial to cost savings and overall improvements to service when consolidating on, Microsoft as a single throat to choke. So there's technology savings, the overall implementation and maintenance costs gets more consolidated when you're with a single vendor, and a reduction in total management costs because of the integration across the products is significant. So we found that conservatively, the reduction in overall threat detection and response, total cost of ownership, when eSentire or a managed service provider is delivering on threat detection and response, is about 50%. Even in individual products like Azure Sentinel, for example, there's been a lot of case studies that have said it's conservatively between 40 and 60% more cost effective than utilizing another enterprise grade SIM to be able to do threat detection and response. And it really speaks to the quality of detections that Microsoft has natively, but also the quality of telemetry and tooling and response capabilities across the board. We have a few case studies on some customers, eSentire customers that have converted to Microsoft. We've been talking about this for 8 months with our customers. Obviously, we've been in the MDR space for a very long time, but one specific customer, a fairly large insurance company, was looking to consolidate vendors. It was, they were a long-standing eSentire customer. They had different log solutions, they had different endpoint solutions, and our network solution. And they are going more towards a multi-cloud environment. So they are, kicking the on-prem mentality and moving towards a more scalable, distributed network. And the CISO and security team is fairly small, that organization. So their main challenges are obviously around resourcing, the ability to configure and manage all these different kind of detection and enforcement points within an organization. And then also this specific customer was already an M365 E5 customer. So it was really leveraging their existing investment in Microsoft. They weren't a full M365 E5 customer, but when we showed them what was possible and what we were able to, take off their plate from a managed services perspective and the integration side, it was kind of a no-brainer for them. So we took them from their previous endpoint security technology and their previous log technology, and we're able to help bring them up to speed on a fully implemented and deployed Microsoft Defender for Endpoint solution. So again, that's all from helping them set up the access packages, hooking up the enterprise application for us to be able to consume and respond to potential threats in the environment, and obviously getting our SOC access to do deep dive investigations. Another customer of ours, who is a Wall Street hedge fund, wanted a better way of dealing with email security. Now, in this specific customer case, they had already bought into Microsoft services. They're a full M365 customer. And to kind of solve for that, they took our advice and went with the consolidation as well of getting rid of a previous email security vendor. And when they did that, they wanted a vendor to be able to fully operationalize the investigations into phishing emails and also help properly implement and configure an email spam gateway, as well as the additional capabilities that comes with MDO 365. Another added benefit is obviously with the MDO 365 product, you get access to the phishing service, as well as the security training as well. So eSentire being able to help fully manage that, do investigations into email, and also help them on the compliance side for making sure that they're actively doing phishing tests and that their employees are being tested when they fall victim to phishing campaigns. Really helped this customer round out their entire CISO function in the organization. And last but not least, this is probably one that will resonate with a lot of people, is around going from a more legacy environment to a cloud-enabled environment. So this is a biopharm company. eSentire already helped operationalize and do detection and response for a large portion of their environment. One of the biggest things, though, is that with COVID and a large portion of remote workers, there are a lot of companies out there that were initially exposed. So being able to help that customer, get them into a more like Azure AD cloud enabled security strategy really helped deliver more visibility, more mitigation of risk, and also being able to have redundancy for business continuity as well. So this is one of the customers where we're doing the full M365 stack related to being able to do threat response across all the multiple enforcement points. So a good customer of ours. So talking about our roadmap, what eSentire has available now for general availability and what's coming in the future. So from our standpoint, the most two important things for an organization as it relates to MDR is generally around endpoint and email security. So that's what we focused on first for our initial cross-training across our SOC operations, the runbooks and custom integrations for being able to respond to threats. There's also a release coming out, which is going to be the majority of the rest of the M365 Defender suite, which will focus on Azure Sentinel, so being able to provide a SIEM as a service, as well as getting into the CASB realm with MCAS, and being able to help do investigations and threat detection into identity. So obviously related to domain controllers and high value assets within the organization, as well as identifying risky users throughout our customers' environments. So one of the main takeaways that I'd like for everyone here to think about when you're looking at vendors and when you're selecting, who you would want to trust with your environment, MDR is not created equally. You need to pick a vendor that has the team to be able to help deal with any situation you have. You want to have the ability to do threat hunting. You want to be able to ingest all these different signals, correlate across them, and be able to respond to them. You need to have a dedicated threat team, threat research team. So threat intelligence, being able to create custom content on new 0 days that are identified, and also complete response. So you need to be able to have someone that's going to integrate with email, security, identity, endpoint, and be able to disrupt those threats before they cause business impacting events to your organization. 24/7 security to deal with anything at any time, and being able to consume multiple signals in a single unified platform that's standardized for SOC investigations across the board. That's everything that we had to talk about today. So we'll open it to questions, and really appreciate you taking the time to listen to eSentire and what we're doing with Microsoft coming up and right now.
So Matthew, do you have a couple of questions that you want to address publicly? I know we had a few questions coming in through the chat window. Is there anything that you would like to discuss now in the last couple of minutes?
Yeah, we had an interesting one come across for the CASB. There's a lot of interest around Microsoft Cloud App Security. I just wanted to let the team know that we will have a dedicated team to help with deployment, but this is part of a fully managed story with user risk and app containment though.
Yeah, and I would say that we're really looking like the MCAS and CASB solution is really looking to limit susceptibility of compromises spreading. Like as Matthew stated, the identity component is key there. If you control identity and then you control what that identity has the ability to access across SaaS and IaaS, it becomes very powerful to limiting, data exfiltration, potentially like threats attacking specific cloud services. So for us, it's another enforcement point and another detection point for identities across an environment.
Thank you. So again, thanks. Thanks everyone. Let me bring up my last closing slide. And yeah, again, thank you so much, Jason and Curtis, and of course the entire eSentire team. I know there's more people behind the scenes. For everyone on the call, some reminders before ending the call. Recordings and slides will be made available at aka.ms/security webinars. Our next scheduled webinars around Microsoft 365 Defender are on our monthly threat insights, which is on July 21st. As you know, on the third Wednesday of each month, the Microsoft Defender threat intelligence team will deep dive into a selected emergent threat as seen in Threat Analytics, which is the threat intelligence library available in the Microsoft 365 Defender portal. But even without being a customer, this is a very interesting webinar where you'll learn about certain threats. Then on July 28th, we have another partner-led webinar, End-to-End Security, or an end-to-end solution, and it's the Oxford Computer Group will show us how upgrading from Microsoft 365 E3 to E5 can help your organization fill in the gaps of your security and identity strategy. And for details and registrations, again, aka.ms/security webinars. So thank you again for today's webinar. Thank you to the rest of the team who helped answering the questions. And most of all, thank you all for being part of our community and for joining us on these webinars. Don't forget the feedback. You can also add kind of what other webinars you might want to hear from us, and we can then work in the background to get these made available. So, okay, have a wonderful rest of your day, rest of your evening, wherever you are. Thanks, everyone.